Thank you everyone for coming. This is using SharePoint Designer 2013 to create workflows. Oh, that's right. That's the official title that we have to work with. We don't like that title, but we couldn't change it. It was too late. So this is the title we want it to be. Using SharePoint 23 workflow to recreate 2010 workflows, and I would add the right way. So.
Because Mike's doing it.
Yeah, it's true. You would say it in a much more polite, refined way than I would, but I am what I am. Anyway, this is the final chapter in a three-part story where we talked about moving from the 2010 paradigm, well, what you have to think of when moving to doing 2013 or workflows in the 2013 era. In the first episode, we talked about, as much as we love the new platform, there's still solid reasons for using the old one, which is still present in 2013. In the second episode, we talked about, no, actually there are great things going on inside of the 2013 paradigm. Let's take a look at those. And in fact, there's even a mitigation strategy where you use old school workflows as components in new school workflows. This last one, all right, we get it, we got off the fence. There are some things you can do for workflow design that aren't possible until 2013 or a third-party product. And so let's roll up our sleeves and get it done and make a really nice workflow. Just as a quick, I'm not going to keep you in suspense, we love stages. This is going to be stage intensive. So who am I? I'm Mike Fitzmaurice. I am the Vice President of Product Technology for Nintex. That is a workflow company. We have a booth downstairs. If you want to know about Nintex, go visit the booth. I'm not talking about Nintex here. We are talking about SharePoint workflow here, talking about the platform and some of the out-of-the-box tools. But I've done workflow for about 20 years and know a thing or two about it. I spent 5 years at Nintex so far. And I spent 11 years at Microsoft. Most of that time was on the SharePoint team. In fact, I was the very first technical evangelist for SharePoint ever across the entire universe. It used to be my job to knock on doors begging people to get interested in SharePoint. It worked. And Penny.
My name's Penny Coventry. I'm based here in the UK. I'm an independent consultant. I've authored or co-authored in excess of 10 books now, and I will be doing some book signing tomorrow. If you are one of the first 20, you'll be able to get a free one.
A free book or a free signature?
Book? Yeah, well, you get that as well.
Okay,
both
good.
at the same time. Yeah. I'll sign anything, even my own books. So I've worked with SharePoint since 2001, so over a decade's worth now, and so that's me, and I'm going to...
Fabulous. So we're tag teaming this one along with all the others. And what we're going to do here is focus on a particular example to illustrate a general design technique. Last year, did anyone attend our sessions last year? Because we tag teamed on workflow last time. It's okay. I just wanted to know. Okay, good. We don't refer to last year.
Right, okay.
Fine. We had a change request process. We actually did an example of it in the first session of this three-part series. Who was at that one? A couple of you. Okay, great. That's fine too. Seriously, it's not a problem. But we built a change request process that was iterative. You could bounce back and forth between different players in the story, and that was built on 2010 using a series of workarounds. Now, we will show you the workaround-based 2010 version, and then I will build the way you should do it in 2013. And we're going to play two roles. Penny is going to do the how you used to do it, and then I'll come back later and show you how to do it from now on. Take it away.
All right, okay, so here's the problem. It's a normal change request problem. You need to do something on in your IT, you know, it might be something on a desktop refresh, or it might be something on your servers. You raise a change request, and you have to get it approved. It first of all goes through a technical reviewer, and then they'll say it's brilliant, you can do it straight away. However, it has to go to the change request board, and they say yes, brilliant, you can do it straight away, and out you pop and you can do the work. Now, of course, that's in an ideal world, and that's not how it usually happens. Usually, you'll raise the change request. Your technical reviewer says, I don't believe that that's all you're going to do. Please be a bit more truthful and tell me exactly how you're going to do it. And so it'll go back to you. And then you amend the change request. It'll then go back to the technical reviewer. And it may go around that loop many times until both of you are happy. It will then pop out of the technical review part of the process and go to the change control board, who will again may need specific information. And again, it could go around that, or it may even go back to the technical reviewer again. So in life, business processes are not usually simple. If they were simple, then it would just be very easy to write a workflow. But we do need to have some kind of looping capability. Unfortunately, SharePoint 2010 workflows, what we're calling the classic mode workflow, cannot loop. And so you have to come over with some other kind of technique so that you can actually trigger some kind of closure of one part of the process, open up the other part, do a bit of work there, and then come back again. So what we're doing here is we're using something called secondary workflow. So I had to, in 2010, divide up this process into two separate workflows. We've got the main part of the workflow, and the main trigger points, or the main way of keeping the status of where we are in the change request process requires me to create an additional column. And it's that column that allows me to work out where I am in the change request process. Now, the main process will only get triggered if, well, it'll always get triggered on a change, but it may come straight out of the workflow process if this column that I've created says that the change request is in a pending status. And if it is in a pending status, then we'll actually fall through the process. So we'll then get some approval from the technical reviewer. If he says more research is needed, I will make this new column to say feedback required. And when that column has feedback required, that's when the secondary workflow, and only when that secondary workflow will be triggered. I will then close or stop this workflow. The secondary workflow will then do its work. When the information is provided, it will turn the CR status column back into a CR pending, which will trigger back the main workflow again. So we have used two workflows. One of them, the primary workflow, which in fact does bulk of the work, and it's the workflow if everything is hunky-dory, and both the technical reviewer says yes on the first occasion, and the change request board says yes on the first occasion. The secondary workflow looks after if we need more information, and that one, as I say, only gets triggered if the CR status column has a value in of feedback required. So you have to go and you have to define your two workflows. So the primary one goes until it's happy. If we need additional information, the first one stops and then the second one goes ahead. And this technique can be used in many different situations. Of course, Microsoft did try to stop some of these things from happening because there is always the chance that you could get into an infinite loop, okay? And so they did try to make it so that you didn't trigger yourself, okay? That you always had to trigger a secondary one and then the secondary one would trigger the first one. So again, why you have to go with two workflows. So I'll quickly demo it, and then I'll hand over to Mike to say, how can we do this instead of having two workflows? So I'll be talking about some of the disadvantages. Okay.
But if you're still working in 2010 land, if you haven't moved to 2013, this technique totally works. And it's not a bad technique. It's just, if you're in, this is the way you did it in 2010. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So here is my CR status column. So this is the column that I'm using to trigger either the primary workflow or the secondary workflow. And you can see down here I've got some items in this list that is partly through the process. So at the moment, even though it says that the change request has been approved, that workflow has not been completed. And so using this mechanism, and especially because I included the start approval action, which alters the value of this column, it can be very misleading to users, and you need to do a little bit of training to say ignore this column, always look at the CR status column, and then you can work out where the change request is in the process. You can't just look at the workflow column to work out what's happening, because it's two workflows working together, and there is no dashboard that is actually bringing that information from the two workflows for the users. So I had to come here and I had to build the two workflows, and you can see there's the two workflows. I've got the change request workflow and the change request needed workflow. So that means if I can create these in SharePoint 2010 as either list workflows or as reusable workflows, and I could take them elsewhere. So that's what I did. Last year, I made them as reusable workflows. I had a WSP file. I could upload them into a 2013. I didn't have to do any recompilation. All my reusable workflows will work okay in 2013. And I can just associate those workflows with the document library, and away I go. But if I'm doing that, I need to always remember I have to associate both of those workflows. Again, a bit more information if you were going to make these publicly available. And so all I need to do is start them, and then according to the status, so here I've got the change request has been approved. It's gone through the process. I've got a Visio diagram of what happens, but it only, again, limits me to the view of what's happening on the primary view. It's not actually showing me, again, what's happening together, so there is no complete summary. Okay, I think that's
great.
Covered it.
Okay. If that's the case, let's jump over to, let's try that again. There we go. How to rework this thing using tools and techniques available to us in 2013. So, redesigning this solution. We're going to reduce its complexity. There are facets in the way you had to do it in 2010 that if you looked at the task process, there were certain points at which it had to end, either because it was rejected, which makes sense, or because it had to be handed off to somewhere else, namely because more research was required. And in a scenario like that, if you didn't use the secondary workflow technique that Penny used, you would just assume that the workflow ended and it would be up to somebody to do whatever had to be done and then restart the workflow. That's the worst of all. Second technique is to use a secondary workflow. But again, that's two workflows to accomplish one process. It's a little weird. So we're going to do this. We're going to remove the task process. We don't need it, and you do tasks differently in 2013. We're going to replace this with a stage approach that uses much simpler start task actions, and we'll establish transitions between stages. So the first thing I have to do, first thing I have to do is tell you about task actions. All tasks they look like this is the form for filling out a task and configuring one. There are a number of things you can fill out in terms of should it wait for a task to complete, should it expand groups, but ultimately it's the stuff down here at the bottom that I care about the most, which is, over in the lower right-hand corner, which content type it is for the task, and what the column is you want to find the outcome in. A task behaves like a little built-in workflow. You configure who the reviewers are, you decide if it's serial or parallel, and any due dates for task completion. but it's tied to a new content type called workflow task, and then in brackets SharePoint 2013. You can, in fact, you're going to have to, if you want something more than simple approve, reject, inherit and customize it. And you'll see all this in just a moment. So we're going to be customizing some tasks. It's necessary because we don't get to configure a task very richly anymore. But the other thing I have to do is give you a quick tutorial on stages. Now, who's here worked with stages before? They are a friendly way of describing a concept called the state machine, which sounds even less fun. But anyone work with stages or state machines? One gentleman back there, maybe someone over here. That's great. Almost no one? That's fine. Then I definitely needed this set of slides. Two concepts. Stages. This is a logical grouping of tightly coupled activities. You'll see some examples. You'll recognize it as soon as we get into this. And then transitions are conditions that move you from one stage to another. Let me give you a very simple example, a light switch. So a light switch is a solution that has two stages. It's either on or it's off. While it's on, or when it turns on, you allow electrical flow. When it turns off, you stop electrical flow. The only transition that's possible is whether someone has a button pressed. This is a light switch with a toggle button as opposed to an up-down switch. If the button is pressed, then first of all, release the button and then change the state to, or stage to off. Or if it's off, change the stage to on. Otherwise, you remain in the current state. So it's not so much a question of beginning and end, it's where are we at the moment? Are we in the state of being on or the state of being off? If I'm off, what can happen? Under what sort of circumstances will I stop being off? If and only if someone presses the button. Okay, then I'll switch over to the other stage, and we'll move back and forth. And there's always an implicit stage of, we're out of here, we're done. Here's a more tangible example that's more real world before we get to the change request process. This is one that's simpler. Consider a press release. A press release is going to route around between several interested parties. There's the author of the press release. There's management who possibly suggest changes and approve it. There's the legal department which has to review it to make sure we don't say something that could get us sued. It's an American company. They sue everybody. And publishers. There's the publisher that will actually put it out there. And you might think it looks like this. You start, does the manager approve? No? Okay, we end. Does the legal department approve it? No, we end. Otherwise, we keep going. And then the publisher deploys it to the public website, and then we end. But in real life, we have to think about, well, maybe we send it back to the author for changes under certain circumstances. Or maybe the legal department has a question that they want to pose of management. So they don't want to change, but they want a question answered, and it routes around from place to place before it either is ultimately rejected or ultimately published. It gets nastier and more like spaghetti as it goes on. And the change request process is even more so. So to handle things like getting professional editorial help, which would be yet another stage or another step in all of this, or other kinds of outcomes, think about it like this instead. Instead of thinking about it as a strict process flow, think about it as 4 stages. It's with the author, it's in the management review stage, it's in the legal review stage, or it's being published. So there are changes that can be made. The author has the option of doing 2 things, either resubmitting it once asked for changes, or giving up and ending it. The manager has the choice of either sending it back for changes or moving it on for legal. Legal has 3 choices. Send it back to management for questions, send it back to the author for changes, or move it on to being published. Publishers just have one choice, which is to publish the thing. The advantage of stages is that they fit both short and long process flows. In fact, let me back up here for a second. It is entirely possible for this to go back and forth between the manager and the author 15 times until the manager's finally happy. And then it goes on to legal, who might then send it back to the author, who then makes a change that the management likes, that legal then sends back with a question that gets answered, which requires another change that gets approved and published. I don't need all kinds of crazy convoluted arrows going in different ways for this. I just have to explain where it could be and what's possible in each of those places. What's more, since I've compartmentalized it into stages, the manager can look at just their corner of this process and decide whether or not we nailed it and figured out exactly what their choices are. And if we did, we're in great, great shape. Author can do the same thing. Legal can do the same thing. Very rarely does everyone involved in a process understand the whole process. If you model things in stages, you don't need someone to understand the whole process. It might be nice if someone eventually did, but you can build it up out of chunks, and that's nice. And you can add extra stages without doing major rework. Like, how about this? I added an extra step here for an editor to get involved and make sure that the writing is better. That's really, really nice stuff. Strategic benefits of stages. Sequential workflows are very predictable. In fact, you wait for something to happen and then you move on. And the author of the workflow controls the process. The decisions are made by the workflow, and the workflow directs all the activity. In a stage-based workflow, it's event-driven. You stay in one stage until something causes it to change. The participants in the process control that process. Decisions happen outside of the workflow, but what's possible is governed by the workflow. And it actually fits this scenario really, really nicely. And there are tactical benefits of this too. You can avoid a lot of if-then-else conditions. You'll still do some, but you'll do a lot fewer. You'll avoid looping almost entirely unless you need to go through a dictionary or something. You'll have far less confusing diagrams and no go-to type stuff going on. What's more, the current stage you're in takes care of all the extra work you have to do in order to make updates. And with that, end of tirade, into demo land we go. So let me flip over to this particular site. And as soon as it stops saying working on it and starts saying here's your site fit, we will be in dandy, dandy, dandy shape. All right. Every conference I ever work at, Wi-Fi is always a problem. So look, I have a change request asking for enhancements to the Wi-Fi signal strength. We're going to run this. I had no reason to suspect this would happen, but it always happens. It was a really good guess. So we're going to run this through a change request process. And just to be safe, I could iterate on this, but I'm going to warn you no, let's go for broke. It'll be fine. Let's go here to Library and go here to create a workflow in SharePoint Designer. And I only need to create one workflow. It's going to be a 2013 style workflow.
Question, is it recording, will it record you or will it record the screen now?
It should be recording the screen.
Oh, that's right, the DVD.
The video, actually, if I remember correctly, the video will have the camera with me gesturing and gesticulating in a little corner and an image of the screen. That'll take up the majority of the space. Otherwise, I would have to pantomime everything happening on the screen for the benefits of the camera. And that would be fun, but probably not very educational. So here's how we're going to do a stage workflow for Reels. It's a 2013 style workflow, and we're going to call this change request process. And generate those local caches. There we go. All right, now, by default, people ignore this wrapper that says stage and just work on the stuff inside. I'm telling you, it's actually the most important thing we've got. And in this particular case, I'm going to say, what do we have? We have the task or the technical reviewer is the first person to get it, right? Okay. I'm going to take a few liberties because we are limited in time. Normally I would have an initialization stage, but I'm going to blow that off. It always begins with the technical review. Now I put the cursor down here, and we're going to add another stage, and this one is going to be change, what's the?
Control board.
Control board, thank you.
Different companies call it different things.
Right. It took me a moment to think that through. If the change control board doesn't like it, or the technical reviewer doesn't like it, well, then it has to be off getting additional research. If everybody does like it, it gets approved. And if for any reason someone says, not only don't I like it, I don't even want you to do any research. This is absolutely rubbish. So it is denied, let's say, for all time, for all eternity. Okay, so this workflow has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stages. And all we really need to figure out is how we get from stage to stage. Let's have at it. So the very first thing we're going to do is assign a task to the technical reviewer. So let's assign a task. It's just one reviewer, so I'm not going to do a task process. Let's assign a task to this user, and I'm going to cheat. I'm going to make a fixed person the reviewer. And the task title will be Tech Review. Actually, let's get slightly savvier about that. Tech Review, and just this once, I'll get fancy. Title. We won't get that fancy for the rest of these, but you need to see that this sort of thing is possible. I could have an elaborate description. I could set up a due date. I'll leave that alone. So I can wait for the task to complete, and I will. I could customize the email that goes out. This is the part that matters. I need to make sure that we know what the options are, and by default, we only get approved and rejected. Actually, that's a problem. We have at least one extra outcome, which is send this thing off for a search. So we're going to have to do something special. I could do it in SharePoint Designer, but I've done it both in Designer and in the native SharePoint UI. I think it's easier in the native SharePoint UI. So let me show you where that task process comes from. I need to open up 2 extra windows, which I can more quickly do here. So here's site content types and site columns. And the site content types right now, if I search quickly for, let's see, task. There's summary task, regular old task, and this is the one I want. This is workflow task, SharePoint 2013. It's been established at the top of the site collection, and we can't really use it because it has fixed options of approve and reject, and I don't want that. I want something better. So I need to make a new, that's right, if you want a custom task, you have to create a custom task content type. So I'm going to call this Tech Review Task. Actually, no. Let's call this Change Request Approval Task. I probably should create a custom task for each of them, but I know that the decision trees for both the Change Control Board and the Tech Reviewer are the same: approve, deny, or more research. So I'm going to take advantage of that. I'm going to base this parent content type on, under List Content Types, the SharePoint 2013 Workflow Task. We'll put this under, yep, that's good. All right, so this is the content type. The task has a name, a start date, et cetera, et cetera. It's this column that needs to go. Why? Because its options are fixed and they aren't the options I want. So we're going to remove it. And now we're going to replace it with a new site column. And this one will be change control. Try that again. Change review, task outcome. And I gotta really be careful about touching the trackpad with my thumb when I type. All right, there is a hard to notice data type here called task outcome. It is not a choice, it is a task outcome. Otherwise, it behaves like a choice. And the three choices are approve, and in this case, I'm going to, instead of reject, say deny, because the third option is research. I could say research required and get fancy, but I'm not gonna. And the default choice is nothing, and that's it. Okay, so now I have a content type that reflects the choice that, or the task that has to be given to those outside people. I need to actually do this one more time because the person that submits the change request has a research job to do. So research task. And again, we will base this, we go to list, we go to list content types, and it'll be based on workflow choice or workflow task. Once again, we get rid of this column called task outcome. Once again, we add something from a new column that we will create called research outcome. It, again, is of data type task outcome, and it's either completed or withdrawn, which is a funny way of saying I quit. I take my ball and I'm going home. But it is possible for when presented with research concluding that forget it, there's no point in doing this, I'm out of here. I'm not doing that for comedy, it's legitimate. All right, we're done with that. There's one last thing we have to do. Right now, let's see, I need to go to site contents. And right now I see we've got documents, site assets, form templates, site pages, and a style library. What we don't have and what we desperately need is a tasks list. And one would be automatically created for us when we publish the workflow, but I can't wait that long because I need to manipulate it first. You'll see why in a second. I'm going to call this tasks. And when I go in here, I need to make a couple of adjustments. Under list settings, right now, the only content type being permitted is task. That's not good enough. I need a few others. So let's go here to my, oh, it would help if I were in the correct site when I did that. Let's do that one more time. Site contents, add an app, tasks. Good. Come in here, go to list settings. Now we will add from existing site content types. We'll go in here to custom content types and look at these two new tasks that I'd created. All right, so now the place where the workflow will be assigning tasks knows about normal tasks, knows about workflow tasks, and knows about my two special tasks. That's the prerequisite part that was oh so very important. All right, now we can go back to the workflow design. So when I come back up here to assign a task to Brett Campbell, and I go here to outcome options, I may need to save and refresh this. In fact, may doesn't really enter into it. I have to do it. Okay, now let's open this up, and I may have to close and nope, there we go. Okay, so now I have three possible choices. This is the bit that mattered a lot. So the change request approval task, I have my three choices: approve, deny, or research. Perfect, this is exactly what I wanted to have happen. Now the task outcome will go to a variable called outcome. That's great. I'm gonna leave defaults in here. Now here under transition stage, once that choice has been made, I need to add an if-then condition. So if outcome, let's see, we have current item to choose from, we have workflow variables, and I'll go with outcome, good. If outcome equals approve, then we move this to go to approved. Otherwise, we have to do one more if. If any value equals value, and once again we go to outcome. Sorry? Oh, right, sorry.
Variable.
Try that again. Good. If outcome equals deny, go to deny for all eternity. Otherwise, all we're left with is research. And where was it? Additional research. Okay, we're good there. So far, so good. Now, what I could do, and what I will do, is attempt to copy this whole thing. That's not really working, never mind. That's fine, this is still easy enough to deal with. So, change control board. In fact, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take this whole stage and copy it and paste it. Yeah, I know it already exists. So change it to, good. This is exactly what I wanted. Now, the change control board task is almost identical. In this particular case, variable task ID approved and not, yep, that's all good. I don't need to change a thing here. The additional research task is very, very similar, except that it's different. So, in the following way, I'll tell you what, let me get rid of this one, because I want to reduce the total amount of typing that has to take place. Once again, paste. Once again, warn me that I already have a technical review stage. Once again, let me change this to additional research. By the way, by virtue of having gotten rid of that, I'm going to need to go back and fix the other two stages because I just deleted the place they were going to. It's not that big a deal. Now, assign a task to Brett Campbell? No, we can't do that. In fact, whoops, it occurs to me, this has already been configured. I can't touch it. Oh, well, that's fine. Bye-bye. In fact, let's undo a couple. Nope, can't undo that. All right, we're going to get rid of this task assignment. And instead, the approval stuff, I can still use that. Where was I? Did I accidentally delete the entire stage? I did. That's fine. This is what we call a teaching moment. It's possible to do crazy things inside of SharePoint Designer. All right, additional research. Okay, let's start typing. What do I want to do? Assign a task to Eden Stafford, the character I'm playing in this, and I'm just going to say research. And if I were really doing this, I would provide more information and everything else. But what I want to do is assign him the research task. And variable can go, actually I'm just going to, no, outcome 1 is fine. Task ID 1 is fine. That's all good. All right, back up here, let's fix this. Nope, not change control board. It needs to go to original research or additional research. Similarly up here, same deal, additional research. One other thing here under change control board, this task that got assigned, oh, that's right, it's referencing the exact same task. I should probably pull just this little bit out, but it'll be fine. All right. Additional research, once it's all done, I need an if-then condition. If outcome 1 equals completed, then we go to the technical review again. If it's withdrawn, then we go to Did I have a,
Start
no,
workflow, is it?
sorry? Oh, just end of workflow, right.
Yeah.
I probably should have created a workflow for withdrawn to inform everybody accordingly. But for this purpose and this particular workflow, we'll just end it. If it's approved, we will also end this. Similarly, if it is denied for all eternity, we will end it. The only thing that would happen normally under approved is I'd send an email saying congratulations. And if it were denied for all eternity, I'd say my condolences. But I'm going to leave the email part out too. Here under additional research, let's see, we ask them a question, it either goes here or here. Good. Under approved, I could send an email, but I won't bother. Denied for all eternity, I could send an email, but I'm not going to do that either. Change control board, yep, we're good. This workflow should be sufficient. I've probably forgotten something else, mind you, but click OK to save this workflow in a draft state, and now tell me what I did wrong. Check for errors, and let's see if we can find them. How about if I remove change control board? Yes, I know that they'll all go away. Will it publish now? No. Worst case scenario, okay, denied for all eternity. Outcome, additional research, yes, that's all good. If it's approved, actually, by the way, if it's approved, it should have gone on to the change control board, so maybe I will rebuild this, but if outcome 1 equals completed, go to technical review, otherwise end. Yep. I'm not sure what I haven't done. All right, let's try check for errors one more time. They're not visible in the current view. If I open this up, do I get hassled?
All right, okay, there it is. Oh, no,
No,
that's
it's there. It's in the task list. I actually added it. Not being yelled at here. If variable outcome, no, that's correct, equals deny. Yep, equals approved. Worst case scenario, friends. Okay, tell you what we're going to do. Maybe it doesn't want me to have nothing in this stage. So let's go ahead and send a little bit of email.
That should work okay.
It should, but at this point, we are in the voodoo zone. Because when it says you have a problem, but it won't tell you what, wackiness has officially ensued. All right, how about now? Nope.
Did you actually associate the task list somewhere?
Well, let's try that, but there it is. And again, I don't have any indicator about what it doesn't like. Tell you what we can do in a scenario like this. How much time do we have?
You've got 15 minutes.
15 minutes? I could probably rebuild a simpler version of this in 5. So we've got the proper task lists. So let's do that. I will create a brand new workflow. So let's go here to workflows. Let's get rid of this one that's in draft and assume that there's something weird going on under the bonnet that is just not understandable. So we're going to make a new list workflow, and we'll do it on the documents library, and we'll call this change request. And stage number 1 is tech review. Stage number 2, research. We'll just go back and forth between the two. Stage number 3, approved. Stage number 4, denied.
Okay.
Okay, so the task here, actually no, assign is what we want. Assign a task to this guy. Task title, tech review, outcome options. We will base this on the change request task. So far, so good. Transition will be based on an if, and if outcome equals approve, we go to approved. Otherwise, if outcome equals deny, go to denied. Otherwise, go to research. No more cutting corners by copying and pasting. That's how I got into trouble this last time. So here under research, we assign a research task to Eden instead of Brett. And research, and it's a research task. Outcome 1, task 1, good, exactly as it should be. So now we do if outcome 1 equals completed, go back to tech review, otherwise go to end of workflow because it was effectively withdrawn. Under approved, we're just going to go to withdrawn.
Go to end workflow.
Sorry, end of workflow, actually. And then finally, under denied,
End of workflow.
end of workflow. All right. Nope, that should do it. And it likes it.
Yeah.
So it was probably some contamination
okay.
based on cut and paste.
Yeah.
All right, well, the workflow works now. Let's run it. Workflows, and there's change request, and we are off to the races. So the very first thing that should happen, I'm in a remote desktop to a Hyper-V machine. Inside of that, there's another remote desktop to, well, another window. Outside here, I'm logged on as a guy named Eden Stafford. Inside here, I'm logged in as Brett Campbell. The joke I made in the last thing is it's like Inception, a dream within a dream within a dream. And I'm hoping that I see, yes, tasks, approve, record declaration for non-disclosure is, no, that's a different one. There, you have a new task, it's TR. Well, I could approve this by clicking edit item, and I see buttons for approve and deny. But let's do the fun part and go make Eden do some research. All done, and let me delete that so I don't accidentally see it later. All right, let's go back here and look at Eden's mailbox. And in a moment, I'm expecting to see a task telling him that he's got more work to do. And if it doesn't show up in the next couple of seconds, I'm going to cheat and go here to tasks. And nope, there's TR. How about over here? Nope, nothing there. All right, well, let's see what's going on in the workflow. It's been approved. All right, well, I'm assuming garbage in, garbage out. So here's what had to have happened. Let's go back into the workflow definition. And there are 3 possible choices. So what did I choose? If the outcome is approved, it goes to approved. If it's denied, it goes to denied. Otherwise, it goes to research. And, well,
That all looks okay.
it does, doesn't it? The outcome was not approved unless I mistakenly clicked on the wrong button. Well, we can try that again, although the very definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome. However, where would we be if we didn't try this once?
I mean, in reality, you'd write away to the history log and try and work out what was going on.
Exactly. And you get a little bit of logging without it. And we'll see something come through in a moment. In fact, let's go back here and go to workflows. And there's one that's running at the moment. Here's another one, and we can see what happened. Yep, there's a task. It was completed. That's the nature of the task, and it's still here. And
It said it was 100% complete. But there is
Right.
one that says technical review there. See it?
Correct.
Oh,
yeah, no, it's there.
Right.
There's another one that's in progress, though. That's all.
yeah.
So let's back up a little bit.
You see, it says status technical review.
Oh, right. So
Perhaps
let's
that
go
was
back
just-
here, and maybe I've got it. Yep, here it is.
We just were impatient.
Correct. And email is never instantaneous. I'll tell you what, just to show that it's slightly more flexible, let's click deny. And now, what happened? Let's refresh, or just go back. And if I refresh this page, now it still says approved.
You've got to change, I've seen this happen in 2010, you've got to go into the single task item. Because I did 2-step approval like this before,
Yes?
and it will just continue to say approved, even though it's like 2-step.
It will continue to say approved until, what did you do to solve it?
I went into in SharePoint Designer, go into the single task,
Mhm.
change the outcome.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's this actual,
Yeah.
Got it. All right, so we're going to take your advice and come here and change this. Is that what you said?
yeah,
Okay,
well, obviously in 2010 you don't have.
right. So yes,
Oh,
it
yeah.
is different,
So
but
the default there was approved, so no matter what you clicked.
Yeah.
except that it's not supposed to, yeah. All right, well, we can try this. Maybe the mere action of shaking it up a little bit forced it to no longer have a default. I don't know. This is goofy. So let's try this one last time. There's my task. And yes, I know I have a task there. Edit. I see approve, deny, research. Let's make it research. And now, if I come here, do I have a do some research task? Yes, I do. So let's click here and assume that I did my research and updated the document accordingly. And now I click completed, and my research task is closed. That's a good thing. And now it's back in tech review. Good.
Yeah, yeah.
And now I come back to tech review, and this time I click edit item and approve. And now refresh. It's back in research land. It's still stuck. All right. It's not supposed to do that. Don't know why it's doing that. It's not branching accordingly based on the value of the variable. And I could keep debugging this in front of you, but that wouldn't be fruitful. The basic concept, however, is completely intact. So we have multiple stages. We have transitions between the stage. And we have some if, then, else nuances going on that I'm really not able to figure out in the quickest amount of time possible. But the concept is valid. We've got several stages. You bounce between the stages until you're effectively done. The stage you're in takes care of updating the status so that you can take one glance and look at everything. Although we ran into a glitch, the concept is nice and solid. So with that, let's go to questions and answers.